This video is made possible by our sponsors, AJA. We'd like to thank AJA for all their support and tell you to go to aja.com for all your production and post-production needs. Hi, I'm Gordon Burkell from Filmmaker U. At Filmmaker U, we create courses for film professionals to deepen and diversify your existing skill set. You can learn more at filmmakeru.com, or of course, follow us on Twitter at filmmaker_u. Every week, we interview a film professional to discuss their work, and this week I'm joined by costume designer Kim No, whose work includes Orphan, First Kill, Saltwater, and the feature, The Accidental Getaway Driver. Now, here's the funny thing. Before we got on, Kim, I kept saying Orphan Kill First. I was really nervous about flipping those two words, and then I did it on The Accidental Getaway Driver.
That's all good.
I guess my first question for you is, how did you get involved with The Accidental Getaway Driver?
Yes, I was involved because CAPE, which is a company that promotes Asian American film artists, recommended me to Andy Sorgi, the producer, and Andy introduced me to Sing Lee, the director, and we spoke for about like a year before we actually started shooting. So Jess Fu from CAPE was the one that made the introduction, but the conversations with Andy was interesting. Like, they hadn't even written the script yet. And they were like, yeah, it's about like March. I think it was March. And they're like, oh yeah, we're going to shoot in October. I was like, yeah, sure. Yes, sure. And a year later, it ended up coming around. But I would just remember the conversations with Sing just being very in depth, and he cared so much about the story and the characters within it, and the inspiration from our own families. So that was very compelling. And even when other projects came around, like, I think that relationship with Sing was the one that made me stick around, and was like, okay, I can really trust Andy, the producer. He really cares about the film. And although it was like a small budget film, it was definitely worth it. And there's a lot of films that come around and say, yeah, we're shooting for Sundance, and you never know what's really going to happen and how it's going to end up. But for some reason, I kind of felt that because there was so much passion and sincerity involved, that I thought it was going to be a really successful film.
I got into sound designing at a point when things were just developing. I was really fascinated by the idea that dialogue, effects, and music were all components of the soundtrack to a film, which had never occurred to me before. What gets me excited is coming up with sound ideas that do match picture, but also is not just the equivalent of what you're seeing on screen. I'm Eugene Garrity, and this is my course on sound design.
When you got the script, what did you take out of the script that you sort of utilized to help figure out what the actors were going to look like, and what did you pull from your families and your background?
Yeah, so if you read the script and if you've seen the movie, like, there's not a lot of things that go on. Like, it's like takes place in 3 days, a couple of flashbacks, and so for me, it's a lot of, you could tell it's a lot of like dialogue, close shots, very intimate moments. And so I took, it didn't need a lot of flashy moments. It didn't need a lot of visual help with the costumes. Like, there's a lot of understated design in the costumes. For instance, the older gentleman, who's played by Hugh, he wears like a set of pajamas the whole time, and it's like super thin cotton, and it reminded me a lot about my grandfather. My grandfather wore these pajamas all the time. And there were different pajamas than like the Hanes set or the Jockey or the Brooks Brothers or the J.C. Penney ones. They're very specific. So it was like there was a hunt in finding those. And so that I drew that from my grandfather. And then, we just kind of looked at family photos to get a sense of the whole world. So, there were moments of like my mom in the background or like my dad's friends in like the cafe and things like that, that would kind of like trigger moments of memories. And so, although it wasn't like very flashy, it was about creating simple characters that felt sincere.
You talked about like the hunt for the pajamas, and it,
Hmm.
it got me thinking about how, where I am right now in Toronto, a lot of
Yeah.
the sort of unique stores where it's like, oh, I'm gonna go there and it's gonna get some weird, you're gonna find something that's not at major stores. They all seem to be
Yeah.
disappearing with globalization, right? Like, so all of a sudden
Mm,
Gap's got their stores on, the trendy areas that you used to go to. So how
yeah.
do you, like, there's this weird, I guess, sort of situation as a costume designer, because that's what people are wearing, but you need
Yeah.
to make something unique for the character. So how do you tackle that?
Totally. I mean, you dig. We went to Orange County and we went to the little shops, and of course, there's like, there's the like the styling part of it where you can buy the really cool
Mhm.
thing that's just one of a kind. But then there's also the practical nature of filmmaking. We had to have four of those pajamas in the same size
Yeah.
because there's like stunts and there's like, he gets wet, there's blood, there's like time, time that passes. And so e- either you either super dig, like we went to like almost every store in Orange County to find the same pattern of pajama, because even if you make it, you have to like wash it down, because when you make clothes, it has a different kind of hand. And so even that, it just takes a little bit longer and more money to create that same hand. Um, so it is tough. It's like treasure finding, treasure hunting. And that's kind of like why I like it. That's why I like costume design. It's like treasure hunting. And, like sometimes you find things that you don't expect to find.
Yeah.
And then sometimes, things like Tay, like the other main character, played by Dustin Wang, he just wears like a Hanes t-shirt for most of the time.
Mhm.
And it doesn't have to be anything, super special, but it is treated in a way where we dipped it in dye. We like sand, paper. We use sandpaper to distress the edges, and we hemmed it, to make it fit like how we wanted it to fit, loose but not too long. And we like tighten like the arm's eye a little bit so that we can see a bit of his muscles, kind of thing. So there's like little tweaks that we create to customize it for the camera.
Mhm.
Um, so, it's not that special, but it is very special to us.
Yeah.
That kind of
Well,
thing.
and like when I've talked to costume designers before, one of the big things is when the actors come in for the first time to see them.
Mm-hmm.
How did that impact you in the design?
Mm.
Like, did it change costumes? Did it alter the way you were going? How did it what happened?
Yeah, always. I mean, I love that first interaction, because most of the time costume designers are some of the only like first people that the actors see
Mhm.
for the fitting. And usually, I like to call actors and kind of like prep them, prime them, send them the inspiration, like hear their thoughts, revise the pitch deck, like the design, and then make sure that the director's um on the same like wavelength too.
Mhm.
But Singh didn't really want to do that. He was very much like, let's just wait and we'll meet them all together. Um, and it did change. We had maybe three fittings for Dustin, and um, it's helpful because Singh was there at the same time, which not a lot of the time that happens when the director's there at the same time. So he was able to give immediate feedback. And then we took it really casually. It wasn't, since we didn't have a lot of changes, we weren't like speed fitting. Because I've worked on a lot of TV as well. And so, sometimes in an hour we'll do like 10 outfits. But,
Mm.
with this in particular, we were able to have the director there, get feedback, try on like an outfit, and then live in it for a little bit. We Justin went in for a fitting, and he sat with the shirt for a while and like smoked a cigarette and like, you know, just kind of lived in it and see if it felt good or not. Um, but I think part of design is taking their feedback, how they feel, how they perceive their own character, how to meld it with the director's vision,
Mhm.
how to meld it within like the whole narrative to make sure that we're on the same page. Because sometimes actors have their own personal idea of their character, obviously, or their insecurities and things like that you have to work out. So it's my job to have that relationship be harmonious.
So, what would you say was your favorite costume that you got to design in this film?
In the film, I guess it's the pajamas. It's
Yeah.
the pajamas. It meant so much to me because, like, we're gonna say,
I was gonna say, were
oh,
they comfortable?
they were comfortable. They were comfortable. They were super comfortable, but they were really thin. And so, like, that's part of the reason why it was so special because it was a sign, it was like a symbol of his fragility,
Mhm.
where you can see the light like through the pants when he's backlit. You can see like his fragile like legs, his skinny legs through it. Um, it was definitely like a homage to my grandfather and, him. And then it was kind of like the untold stories that my grandfather was never able to, communicate to us. Um, so, it was like a really hard, piece to get multiples and to find the right pattern. Like, the inch difference of stripe really makes a difference, or like the contrast of the stripe, or like how we dip down and change the color of it was a thing. But that was a very special piece for me.
What was it that got you, like, made you want to become a costume designer?
I was in a performing and visual arts high school in Dallas called Booker T. Washington. It's like the same school that Erykah Badu went to, Nora Jones, and Roy
Mm.
Hargrove, a lot of great musicians. I was like a concert symphonic clarinet. I just realized one day that I wasn't going to be the best clarinetist because you have to practice like 7 hours a day.
Yeah.
Um, and I had an amazing costume design teacher named Deborah Washington, and really loved her and just loved making things with my hands. Like
Mm.
I loved drawing something and then creating it. And then I loved working with production. Like I remember like doing wardrobe for a theater piece that we did. And, we were tying obies and like kimonos for actors and getting them prepped and ready for the show. And that was really exciting. And then filmmaking is like, that's the same thing, right? Like just prepping everyone to get ready, working together as a team so that, um, yeah, I think making things with my hands and then working as a team with everyone was really, really cool for me.
I have one last question for you. What would you say is your
Yeah.
favorite guilty pleasure film or TV show to watch?
You know, it's funny because it's life, it's cooking shows. It's thinking about that, and I think it's actually an insight to different cultures and like unique culinary experiences of people. And I think that's what my job is, like dissecting culture and personalities and psychology. So understanding these nuances of different characters, I'm able to help build a visual story through the costumes. So like I love that because Anthony Bourdain like these cooking shows or traveling shows, like you get to see little slices of people's life. So yeah, so that's been my guilty pleasure.
Well, thank you so much for letting me interview you today.
Thank you, Gordon. I appreciate all the questions.
And that's it for this week, everyone. Make sure to check us out at filmmakeru.com, or of course follow us on Twitter at filmmaker_you. I'm Gordon Burkell. Thanks for watching. This video is made possible by our sponsors, AJA. We'd like to thank AJA for all their support and tell you to go to aja.com for all your production and post-production needs.